Hello guys.
Morning.
Good. Hey, it's you. Yeah. You look like a.
Sammy, the banners must go here.
I was thinking one will come outside.
Yeah, we got one here, one over there, and we can have one over there as well.
Oh, you have the lady there. Going to do the law. Oh, wait, looking forward. Yeah.
These are too tall for me to set up.
Ja, maybe Sam would be able to help Sam.
Yeah.
Derek has his presentation on a memory stick.
Where are we going to put it on to?
Tavisha,
Tavisha is calling that now.
Thanks. Thank you.
Just testing out.
Thanks.
okay, this one can go maybe next to that one.
We already have people in the lobby.
Yeah.
Online. I just hope the mic is off.
I think Sam
Let me get turned.
needs to come here.
All right, I'll come now. No, yeah.
Can you just click, let's see one person who won. Just click that. Palisa? Palisa?
Good morning.
Hi, Palisa, it's Sam. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks. And you, Sam?
Sharpman, can you confirm for me if you are able to see the presentation on the screen from your PC?
Yes.
Is it visible? Master driver?
Yes, it is. And I can also see the room.
All right. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, guys, we will just resume shortly. We're still just sorting out logistic, all right? So everyone can just grab your coffee in the meantime.
Welcome, everybody. Today we are pleased to announce that we are having a road safety day in collaboration with Master Drive. And Derek Kirby here is going to be doing a presentation on defensive driving. Following that, we will have a tea break, and then at 11:45, we will be doing a CPR and first aid and choking demonstration. And then we're going to move out to the car park, and we will have a seat belt convincer demonstration. And also we have a golf cart, and we're going to look for a volunteer to wear the drunk driving buster goggles and to navigate a course in a golf cart. So that should be an awful lot of fun, and also highlight the dangers of driving under the influence of alcohol. So welcome everybody, and I hand over to Derek Kirby, and please enjoy his presentation on defensive driving. The floor is yours, Derek.
Thank you. Yeah, again, welcome everyone. And like Joe said, we're going to go through, sort of some driver safety tips, etc., on the presentation. And again, once we finish, then I'll open the floor for any questions. So please, if you can, jot down your questions as we go through, because at the end I'll be asking for questions. Right, so I just want to share a few results that we did recently with Joe's team and the guys with a survey we released on SurveyMonkey. It was a series of 10 questions we put on there. It ranged from brake distance to certain awareness techniques and percentage of alcohol, etc., all road safety related. And those are kind of the results. So they're average results, but again, a lot of the time people can sort of, again, start educating themselves about road safety. For us, the major one here was how long a car takes to stop. And we can see that it does take quite a while to stop, especially within the CSIR compound here or campus. A lot of the times cars are doing, well, supposed to be doing 40 k's an hour, but this morning I even saw a car flying past me at about 65, probably. Right, so it just takes, that car's going to take about 16 to 17 meters to stop at that speed. So again, if the speed limit is set at 40, obey the speed limit, because that determines how long the vehicle's going to stop. Right, so to obviously achieve this, we work on a thing called the SAFE system. This is an internationally recognized system that is taught overseas in the UK, Germany, and the likes. And what we're basically doing is it's trying to bring road safety and driver training into one sphere of SAFE system. So what we talk about is, it doesn't just mean that I'm making a safe driver. So you're attending a course, great, you're a safe driver. What other factors go into it? And we look at the vehicles, we look at speeds, the roads, and obviously then again the driver. So for example, if I've got the perfect defensive driver out there and he has a collision, as a line manager, as his supervisor, do we just blame the driver? Sometimes we just do. We say, look, you crashed, your fault, job done. And then we usually would say, well, you went for driver training, it obviously didn't work. But what we got to start looking at is different factors. What led to the collision, the road surface, the road geometry, the road design, etc. And all this plays a role in the actual SAFE system. So another good example is if we do have a collision, everyone looks at it and goes, yeah, but it's a crash. You need to look at the extent of the crash. So for example, if someone did hit a pole, there's no injuries, chances are that person actually did crash, but it was less of a fatal crash. Whereas if they were going a higher speed and crashed into the pole, the result would have obviously turned out a little bit different. So we're incorporating all these things into our training program, which is obviously the SAFE system. Right, part of the SAFE system is your spider technique that we use. This is an awareness technique. If you're just doing this, this is probably one of the core things of defensive driving. So the S stands for search. This is researching for potential hazards out there. Now, hazards can be anything from animals, potholes. That's a favorite one in South Africa is potholes are always there, so we need to look for those. Traffic lights are hazards. We've got taxis, pedestrians, all sorts. I don't know if you saw recently on social media, we have people getting towed behind tankers in trolleys. That's potentially a hazard as well, in the rain as well. I do believe that the vehicle that the guy was behind did stop once public had alerted him to the guy in the trolley behind him, and he did call Metro to come and sort out the situation. So we face a lot more hazards than in obviously other countries. So we continuously need to be searching for these things. Right, predict. We need to predict the outcome of these certain hazards. So for example, if we now drive out the campus and we see a taxi parked on the left of the road, we generally focus on that taxi. What you need to do is you need to extend your vision and your thinking to now the right side of the road. Because what's going to happen, if there's a passenger on the right side of the road, they're going to run across to get into the taxi, which is now on the left. So start broadening your vision and predicting what could possibly happen. Right? And imagine if that's the last taxi home, that guy's doing what? He's got his head down, running straight across the road towards the taxi. So not only focus on the taxi, but start looking at other circumstances. Right, we need to identify the hazard and the problem. Because a lot of the time, when you're on rural roads, traveling down, especially in Easter time now, we obviously set Polokwane, that's our destination, Durban, Cape Town, etc. And specifically down to Polokwane, you've got these, cattle, etc. on the side of the road. A lot of people identify the hazard as cattle, and they don't slow down. They just keep the same speed. So a little bit of a tip is if you do see cows on the side of the road and their heads down, generally we do slow down. We can identify the hazard, but they're not going to possibly move because what they focused on is obviously eating. If you see a group of cattle and one of the cattle's heads are up, be very cautious because what's that cattle doing? That specific one is looking for a better piece of grass, right? And the better piece of grass might be across the road, and he crosses the road, the rest will follow. All right, so be cautious of that. Also, we're going into obviously colder season. I mean, today is a good example. It's starting to get colder for the weekend, which means probably Easter is going to be nice and cold for us. So be aware that potential hazard is animals coming to the road at night. So what they do is at night time, they would obviously migrate to the tar. They go onto the tar, lie down, because obviously the warmth is still retained from the tar, and especially pregnant cattle, etc., sheep, they generally come to the tar to put their stomachs on the tar to keep obviously their stomachs warm during the cold conditions. So not so much during summertime, but winter time, they definitely land up more on the road. Right, we need to decide what action we're going to take. So it's not a case of, well, I'll see what happens and then try and swerve. It's you need to decide now and do it now. Right? So it's no time to wait and go, well, maybe I could go left, maybe right. No, if you continuously doing this in your head, you'll make the right decision. And then execute that decision now. So never adopt the wait and see attitude and go, well, if he does move, then I will decide what to do. Right? So a lot of the times I see people on the freeway. We unfortunately have it in this country where we have pedestrians on the freeway, illegally, but they are on the freeway. And some of them are walking on the freeway. I saw another one the other day where I had two cyclists in the fast lane heading to work on the freeway. It was great. So that's their route. That's what they stick to. So again, remember, if this happens, move. A lot of the times people stay in that fast lane. They go, you know what? If the pedestrian moves in front of me, then I hit him. It's his fault. Whose fault is it? Yes, 100%. He shouldn't be on the highway. But you can never sit there and say to me that you'll still get to work after hitting a pedestrian and carry on with your normal day. One, your car is probably destroyed, right? You're hitting him at 120 kilometers an hour. Two, definitely you probably might be getting arrested, right? Until the case obviously gets pending, etc. You're on the scene until they can get a coroner. Your life has changed as we know it. Right? So don't adopt that attitude where if I hit him, it's his fault. I'm clear. It's fine. Okay, because I don't want to even imagine what trauma is going to go through your mind every time you go to sleep about you hitting a pedestrian on the highway and killing him. Right? And then again, react the best way possible for this hazard. So if I do see a pedestrian, I react and I move a little bit. You know, people say to me when they're driving with me, gee, the cyclist is on the left and you're moving so much for him. Well, yeah, because he might swerve. And again, it goes back to my previous thing. Yeah, but if he swerves, it's his fault. It doesn't make a difference whose fault it is. We need to keep safe. Right? All of us need to keep safe and keep others safe out there, irrelevant of whose fault it is. Right, so I just want to play you this short clip on that specific spider technique. And if these guys were doing that, or specifically the one guy was doing it, different outcome. Right, if we just decided to use that spider technique, possibly check a second time for traffic, go a little bit slower, circumstances in that clip would have been a little bit different. Right, stopping distance, and again, speed is determining of this. So stopping distance works on two things. Firstly, we have driver reaction time. Now, this is the time that it takes my eyes to see something, send a message to my brain, brain sends a message to my foot, then I actually brake. On average, we're looking at 0.75 seconds on an average human. We do find that this might get slightly worse, especially obviously in the times we are now, because a lot of people are stressed about coming out of COVID, getting back to work. I know a lot of companies are struggling to get their people back to work now. They've adopted the attitude of, I'm not going back to work. I'm happy at home and life's good for me. Right? So those are the people that don't want the level to change at all and the state of disaster to expire. They want it to stay in place so they can stay at home. So what we find is that people's reaction times are getting worse. Another thing, what we're trying to do some research on, but it's going to take a while, is the kids of this era, let's say, for example, kids now starting to drive, is their reaction time worse or better? And sometimes they think it might be better because they spend their whole day playing video games. So on the video game, yes, the reaction time is fantastic, but in real life situation, this could be obviously different. Okay, and we find a lot of kids that are starting to drive just think that life is a reset button. So they play their video game, the car rolls off the video game, and they push reset, they get a new car, great, off they go. And this is probably what happens when they go out there and drive in real life. They don't want to experience this, but it's built into their subconscious. And this is partly why we're obviously getting a lot of collisions. So we're looking at 0.75. The good news is most vehicles' reaction time is 0.25 seconds. This will get slightly better through technology, but I can tell you it's never going to get down to zero, because that means the car is going to stop so quickly, and they can make it stop dead. But obviously then it's like hitting a brick wall. So the vehicle needs to slow down before it comes to that final stop, and obviously technology determines that. So with your likes of ABS, which is not automatic braking system like most people think, it's an anti-lock braking system, right? The primary function of ABS is to allow the vehicle to steer whilst you're on the brake. It does reduce the braking distance to a degree, but not major. It was always invented to allow steering while braking, not to brake quicker. So we're looking at about 2.5 seconds over there. And this is the time that all the computers do their work. Once you've hit the brake, it determines which wheel they're going to start braking, releasing with the ABS sensors, etc. Right? So all this, if we add the 0.75 and 0.25, we're looking at about a second in an emergency. So remember, if you're driving a vehicle at 60 kilometers an hour, you're covering 16.2 meters per second. So by the time you've done your reaction, you've pushed the brake, the car does its work, you have covered 16 meters. Done. Gone. And then you're only starting to brake, right? So you're already on the negative side of braking. So again, this basically means that if you start using that spider technique, you're preparing your mind for situations, you can be ready. A lot of the times, When people come to me for driver training, I take them out. We get to a green traffic light. What do? Put flat. Let's go faster because I need to get through there before it turns orange. So they chase the green light. In fact, what you should do is reduce your speed and cover the brake, because then I'm taking part of the reaction time out of it. Okay. Right, this is obviously with regard to the difference in speed. This is a video of the difference between 60 and 65 kilometers an hour, how much that 5 kilometers makes the difference. Right, so you can see there, that leads me back to that safe system in the beginning. Yes, both cars crashed. One was worse than the other, and for 5 kilometer difference. Right, so maybe in situations like that, the driver cannot prevent that situation at all, but look at the less of an injury, less collision, etc. Okay. Right, so use of speed, most of us define this by sticking to the speed limit, right? And we say, well, if it's 60, it's 60. So in the campus over here, it's 40, and trust me, people stay 40. Yeah? They push it, like, let's do 45. No one's going to know, it's fine. But you saw the difference between 5 kilometers an hour difference. So it's not only the posted speed limit, but it's 4 conditions. So for example, if you're driving in the campus and you see, like for example, this morning we were setting up and everything, it's something out the ordinary, but I still had cars driving past 50, 60 k's an hour. That car should have gone, hang on a minute, there's something not, it's out of the ordinary, let me slow down to about 20, 25, 30. Right? If you can't see properly because of low light conditions, sometimes mist, slow down your speed. Okay, but everyone decides, I'm not speeding, I'm at the speed limit, it's fine. Everything's perfect. Okay, unfortunately, we obviously don't obey the speed limits as an important way of avoiding crashes. So we say, well, you know, if the road says 80, then I do 90. I mean, someone maybe got it wrong. I don't know why they put the sign there. So let me tell you how they put the sign there. They actually went and designed the road and then tested it and then put the sign there. So when I do crash investigation, what I love is when a car goes around a corner and then slides off the corner. Then the corner says, or the speed before the corner says 80 kilometers an hour. Then everyone goes, yeah, the car must have been doing at least 100 to go off there. And I'm saying he's doing far more than 100. Because how we design the road is, if I post a speed limit at 80, I've probably tested that road at 140. So for him to come off the road, I can already in my mind go, he's doing well over even 100. Okay. So we actually over-engineer the speed for these situations. Okay, so that's why most of the times when I get to crashes, yeah, he's doing at least 120. They go, how can you tell? Because of the road geometry and how it was designed in the posted speed limit. All right, speeding is regarded as affecting nearly 1/3 of fatal crashes. Folks, it's obvious. The faster I'm going, the more impact I'm going to have in a collision. So what happens to my body? We sustain 3 collisions in a collision. Firstly, it's the primary collision, which means the car's actually hitting the other car or the bridge pylon. That's collision 1. The second collision is me hitting airbag, dashboard, or something in the car. And then my third collision is something we can never, ever prevent. And in fact, I don't think for the next 200 years we'll ever prevent this, is the third collision of my vital organs going into my ribcage. I can't prevent it. Unless I go and get some surgery done and put little seatbelts on my kidneys and heart and liver and lung. Unfortunately, we can't do that. So most of the time when I attend collisions, the car, yes, is quite severely damaged. It's a fatality, and the person there's no injuries to them, but they P4, fatal. And that's because of internal injury. All right, so we can put all these safety features in the vehicles. I mean, vehicles coming out now with 11 airbags. We've got pre-tension seatbelts. We've got all these fancy things. The thing I cannot prevent is that internal injury, and that is due to speed. Right? So think about it in a collision. Let's say, for example, and my live audience can start screaming the answers out. So the mathematicians can for me. I'm 50 kilograms. So at 60 k's an hour, my body weight is 30 times more. So how much am I weighing? What's 50 times 30? Anyone? 50 times 30. Yeah. See how we rely on calculators, eh? How much is it? What's 50? How much? 1,500, which is 1.5 tons. That's how much I start weighing at 60 k's an hour in a collision. So I'm 1.5 tons coming towards my driver if I'm sitting in the back without a seatbelt. Right, so imagine I come to a dead stop. The rest of my internal organs have to continue its path of travel, and that's into the rib cage. Okay. So if I reduce my speed and I go less, obviously less body weight, I'm obviously weighing. So the 30 times becomes less. Okay. So bear that in mind. Right, so that leads me to my next one, use of seatbelts. This we see often, and after tea we'll obviously release some of the stats that we've picked up at the gates, because I got two of my instructors out there checking who's wearing seatbelts, etc. So we'll see if it's improved or got worse. Sometimes it might get worse, you never know. Right, but again, still in this day and age, we're in 2022, we still don't wear seatbelts. I can't get it. And what I saw on the internet the other day, you can buy it from Take-A-Lot and a few other providers, is you can buy an actual buckle that you can clip into the thing to make the noise go away. I have no idea who is legally selling these things, but I'd love to know who it is to maybe we can start suing them and get some millions. But yeah, it's on the market. You can buy it. I have no clue who would buy it, but there are people out there. The other people we see, seatbelt goes behind them, and they sit on the seatbelt. I mean, that's more effort than anything else. So again, if the seatbelts are fitted in the vehicle, you will wear it, right? If the seatbelts at the back, all right, are there, your passengers will use them. How many of you get into the car, I buckle up as a driver, my passenger buckles up, I drive off, I've got two adult passengers in the back, and I don't care about them. Not any of us will say, look, can you please buckle up? You just accept, let's go, it's fine. Remember that whole scenario of me weighing 30 more of my body weight? Imagine that passenger at the back coming towards you. You're going to be dead. He's going to be fine. And he's the one coming into you. All right, so I've been to collisions where a car has rolled. The occupants weren't wearing seatbelts. Obviously, there were 4 in the vehicle. They were all declared dead on scene. And you must understand, we have the fantastic job of now extracting those people. So you must imagine I find piece of a jaw in an elbow, because those are ping pong balls flying around that vehicle, right? And you must see the damage inside that vehicle from people, head hitting the A-pillar, arms, legs. At that point in life, you're a piece of meat flying around the vehicle. If everyone wore their seatbelt, that collision would have turned out differently. Right? How many of us in my live audience have been on an aircraft? Flown? What's the first thing you do when you sit down? You put the seatbelt on. Why? Why do you put it on? Not as a traffic officer. You know it's law to wear seatbelts when you drive, and we ask you very nicely, and we have campaigns, but no one wears a seatbelt. But on the aircraft, the air hostess asks me, so I will do it. Why is it any different in the motor vehicle? And if you honestly think that seatbelt at 30,000 feet is going to save you when you fall out the sky, good luck. Okay. But in your car, you stand a 99% chance of that seatbelt saving you. But we debate it. Should I, shouldn't I? I'm just going down the road. It's fine. Maybe I didn't. I don't understand in 2022 why we're having this debate. This shouldn't be part of my presentation ever. I should just be like, seatbelts, yes, great, right, move on. But I have to stand up here and convince everyone to wear a seatbelt. Right? And I have to convince everyone to put their kids in a car seat. That's your prized possession. but your prized possession is standing on the passenger seat. That means it doesn't even take a collision. It takes a break. The kid's gone. They can't fend for themselves. They can't brace themselves. They can't understand what's happening. So that's head first into the windscreen. Finished. Right? And I think, Joe, for our next campaign, if you'll allow me to share some very gruesome images with the audience, maybe that will inspire them to drive a bit differently. Because I have lots of them. Maybe you won't drive at all. You'll have to Uber from work. Right, but seriously, folks, seatbelts is just, it's a simple thing. Just wear it, right? Okay, so SRS, a lot of the myth out there is, if I have airbags, because I paid for them, I don't have to wear my seatbelt. Because I have airbags, it's fine. So I have an option here. The option is not an option. You will wear your seatbelt. In other words, the SRS on some of the vehicles that you see on the steering wheel stands for secondary restraint system. It supplements what the primary system does. Now, your primary system is your seatbelt, right? So without the seatbelt, you're going flying towards the airbag and you're meeting the airbag halfway. How many of you know how fast an airbag comes out? What speed? 100? Okay, your average airbag will deploy driver airbag at about 380 kilometers an hour. You meeting it halfway. I think the airbag's going to win the battle. Right? Yes, you might not die, but you're going to hospital, broken cheekbone, eye socket, maybe lose your eye, depends where it hit you. You know, we tend to, when we have a collision, our human instinct is to look where the issue's coming from. We look into danger. So I might be like this and hit the airbag, skew, grabs over here, pulls, snaps my neck. Whereas if I had the seatbelt on, this wouldn't happen, right? So the seatbelt works in 3 ways. Have you ever noticed on your seatbelt, if you're driving and you want to lean forward, it locks? Yeah. Sometimes annoying, isn't it? Try to reach for the remote at your gate and it locks. Yeah, can't get out of it. That mechanism is the only reason why they manufacture that mechanism, is to reassure us consumers that it actually works. Okay, so what they did was, back in the day when they invented seatbelts, that seatbelt mechanism was never in place. But then consumers were, how do we know that I bought that seatbelt and it works? I don't know it works. I mean, it works in a collision, but I need to know it works before a collision. So we put that to reassure people. It's a very small plastic piece inside the mechanism. If I pulled it, and please don't do this, if you pull it hard enough with both hands, you'll snap it off completely. Does that mean the seatbelt's broken? No, you've just broken the reassuring device. So in a collision, that first snaps off. It then allows the seatbelt to roll a bit. And inside the mechanism, there's a torsion bar, and that torsion bar starts torsioning. As the torsion bar gets to its maximum torsion, that too snaps off. All right, because again, I can't have a seatbelt that now grabs me straight away, because it's going to slice me in half. So it needs to reduce my speed towards the airbag. Once I get to the airbag, I go into a deflating airbag. So on the airbag, I've got 2 massive holes at the back, which as it deploys to its full capacity, we're sitting on about 65 liters on the driver's side and about 85 liters on passenger side. It will then start deflating. So everything works in conjunction to reduce my momentum going into the airbag. And that's what saves lives. So you see how everything in the vehicle works in conjunction. There's not one or the other, right? And then I have this nice scenario where people wear seatbelts because I've convinced them, but their seating position is a little bit different to normal driving. So you know who I'm talking about? Roll the seat all the way back. Now I'm lying. I don't know how I don't get it. I've tried to. I can't even drive. Can't even see. But that's the problem as well, because now as I hit something, I'm going to slide under the seatbelt, and then the seat or the waist strap is going to hang me or chop me in half. So remember, it's only as good as you position everything. So everything works in conjunction. I go back to the aircraft terminology again. Before you take off, everything has to be straight, seat upright. You can't be sleeping. Great, let's move. Because they're putting you in the optimum crash position. Once you're up there at 30,000 feet, go walk around the aircraft, go to the toilet, seatbelt off. No one cares. It's fine. Because nothing's going to save you if you fall out of the sky. Now we're coming to land. So what do? Tray tables up, seatbelt on, seat up. They're getting you in the correct position. Okay. And here's a useless fact on aircrafts. If they ever tell you to go in the brace position, why do they put you in that position? That is like the worst position you can ever be in a crash, because you'll instantly break your neck. That's why they put you in that position. When you do hit the ground, they know everyone's going to not suffer. They're going to die quite quickly. Okay, and that's a fact. Look at the air hostesses. Where are they situated? In the aircraft facing you. They never go in the brace position, and they're facing you because they're in the perfect scenario when they crash, in the likelihood that they need to help survivors. Okay. So if you're in a situation where the plane's going down, go and kick the air hostess out of her seat and take it safer. Okay. But again, it's about being in the optimal crash position. You can see here on this clip, see what happens at the crash testing. Look at the rear passenger, not retract. Right, so you can see the importance of obviously buckling up. Now this includes any object. We've spoken about kids, but pets as well, right? Small dogs, big dogs, jump in the back seat, off we go to the park. Again, it's an object that's going to weigh 30 times its weight at 60 flying towards you. So every object, a laptop, I've seen laptops on the backboard. I mean, this is not maybe a kilogram, if that, but it's weighing 30 kilograms. So if I stood here and took it off the podium and said, right, I need a volunteer and I'll throw the laptop towards your head as fast as I can, no one will be coming up yet to volunteer. You're going to get injured. But we put it in the car. Right, so objects away. Right, drinking and driving, and this is now, everyone's been waiting for next weekend, I'm sure, because now we need to catch up. You know, we haven't been away for almost 2 years. We need Easter's time to drink now, right? What is the legal limit in South Africa? My live audience. 0 point? Okay, so we're looking at 0.05, right, for normal licensed drivers. With drivers with a PDP, it's 0.02. And this is obviously BAC, blood alcohol content, all right? So if you get stopped on the side of the road and the officer says, would you do a breathalyzer? You say, fine, not a problem. And you blow into the breathalyzer and he says, oh, look, you blew 45.45. He's measuring breath, all right? Because a lot of arguments happen on the side of the road and they say, if I've got 0.45% blood alcohol in my blood, I'll be dead, which is quite true. He's only measuring breath at that point, and his device is measuring breath, which means that he has probable cause to detain you, obviously arrest you, and then what they require is a blood test. Right? The blood test is the one that obviously holds water in court, and that's where your BAC will be obviously tested for. Okay. The unfortunate thing in this country is that only about 2% of all drunk driving cases actually go to court. Out of that, 0.1% are actually convicted. And why? Why is this? Docket gets lost, bribery, we pay this guy to lose a page, blood samples compromised, blood sample never arrives. It's a problem. Okay. But again, a lot of people, you see, and this is where I have a problem. Would you go to the shops, fill up your trolley, walk out without paying? Would you do it? Why not? You're scared of getting caught and it's illegal. So why do we drink and then we stash some money in the cubbyhole for bribery? We're an upstanding citizen. We don't steal our groceries, but we'll bribe the traffic officer if I get caught drunk driving. You see how we play this whole game with ourselves. Right? Why do that? Right? I know people that go down to the coast and I'll put away some money in my budget for speeding. Come on, I don't get it. Right? So do you blame the metro out there for taking bribes? Blame yourself because you're feeding the process. You're the one to blame. If you stop it and everyone's not giving bribes to them, do you think they'll have bribe money? No. Do you think they'll ask for bribes? No, because no one's giving them bribes. All right, so look at how we can obviously we play against ourselves, and we partly the ones to blame. Right, cell phones, again, this is a favorite one. We all know what the law says about cell phones. It says I'm not allowed to drive using my cell phone. In addition, what it says is, it says that no part of the cell phone may be in contact with my body whilst driving. Okay, the legislation was changed about 8 years ago because what people used to do was they used to put their cell phone, strategically over here, and then it's on speaker. Then I can talk, it's fine. Or what I do is I just do that, and then when I see the traffic officer, I'm like, I wasn't using it, although the conversation's going on in my pocket. So what they're saying is, if I get stopped and my phone's in my pocket, legally they can fine you for that. Huh? It has to be out of reach because they don't know if I just hit it before I see them. So they changed the legislation. It says, yes.
Question about self.
Yes.
Is there a law about on social media, like on Instagram, people like lives? So obviously they're distracted, and this is whilst driving, looking in front and then looking at the camera. I mean, what are there laws around that? Because it would be a problem if you're distracted.
Yeah, absolutely. So the law, remember, says the cell phone may not be in contact with one of my body parts. So it's on the cradle over there, but that's now deemed a distraction as well. Right? They can't technically prove it because it's on the cradle, but again, we need to do the right thing. We can't just go, well, you see, we're always finding ways how to jippo the system. Not to just, okay, let's do the safe thing. We're going, how can we get around the system? If we're that creative in our job, we probably have a different perspective in life. But we always, the first thing to come out, we go, how do we jippo it? Auto, we've been talking about auto for years. The first thing people say to me is, how do I get like less points? Can I bribe the guy to, why are we finding ways around it? Embrace it. Go, you know what? Auto can come in tomorrow. It's not a problem. I drive properly. I obey the rules of the road. I don't use my cell phone. Auto's not going to affect me. It's fine. Right. So again, yes, we do Instagram. I've had people do Zoom calls while driving. And it's fantastic on the new cars now because I can actually connect it to Apple Play in the vehicle and I can see everyone like I'm presenting to everyone now. I can see it on my entertainment system. It's fantastic. And then I can put a virtual screen so people think I'm in the office, but I'm driving. Okay, think about if you were now to have a collision and you kill someone. I come along as an investigator and I need to now investigate the collision, either criminal or for insurance companies. All I do is I plug that car into my laptop. I download the OBD unit and I can go back to the office and I can see everything. I can tell if the car was active, if the flicker was working, if it was connected to the cell phone. I could probably even tell you who's in your Zoom call. Right? I can use it as evidence for the insurance company. And insurance companies are doing it nowadays. They'll phone you and say, look, we had the investigator go and investigate. We found it. It's you guilty. We're not paying out your premium. Sorry. It's happening. Right? They are sick. They are burning. They are bleeding, insurance companies, because they pay out every 5 seconds. You see on social media, the guy goes and buys a brand new Ferrari. 4 hours later, he crashes it. His fault, probably. But the insurance goes, oh, just go get a new one. It's fine. They can only put you in premium up per month a certain amount. Right? Because otherwise, you're going to lose customers. So they're getting to that point now where they're trying to investigate most of the collisions. All right. Now, is it safe now that I'm speaking on the cell phone through the car kit? Because that's legal. I can connect it to my fancy car kit. I can have conversations for days. It's not illegal, but is it the right thing to do? Well, it's all about concentration, right? So distractions, I need 100% concentration when I'm driving. So if I'm on a call, I'm not physically holding the phone, but I'm talking. My mind is in the call. I'm taking 80% of my concentration to the call. So I've only got 20 left for the road, right? And for the ladies in the groups and on my virtual, ladies, we cannot multitask, eh? None of us. As ladies are weak, I can multitask. It's humanly impossible. What I'm doing is I'm portioning my 100% attention to certain tasks. Sorry, so maybe 20% goes to talking on the phone, 5% to adjusting the aircon, another 5% to looking somewhere, another 2% to the kids. You see how I'm chewing into my 100%. Right. The other thing that we obviously look at is if I'm talking to you on the phone via the Bluetooth car kit and I get a call. I'm driving on the highway and the call is from a competition I entered and they say, you are the fantastic winner. Congratulations, you've won 5 million rand. What's going to happen to me? Emotion, I'm already spending it. Am I concentrating on the road? No. On the other side of it, what happens if a loved one phones me and says, look, your mother's just died in a car crash, you need to get to the hospital. Now what? One, I'm distracted, emotions, and I have to race to get there. Right. And it might sound heartless, and people in my office think I am heartless because I'm a voluntary medic. I'm not heartless, it's reality. Is why are you rushing to the hospital? Why? Can you provide better care for them at hospital? No, they're in the best possible position there. They're injured, they're in surgery, everyone's rushing. To see and do what? Right? I've told my family members, you go home, you go to my house. In my cupboard, you know where my go bag is. You grab my go bag, you bring it to the hospital in your own time. Because when I wake up after surgery, I need stuff in that bag. You rush, sit in the waiting room, for what? Okay, so think differently of how we're obviously responding to things during the day. All right, so Easter holiday tips. I always bring it back to the famous thing, tires, because we all polish our car, clean it, make it look pretty, and then we don't worry about the tires. Eh? So how often should we check tire pressure? Did you check it this last week? No. When it goes for service. Okay, so we should check our tire pressure irrelevant of whether we have a tire monitoring system on the vehicle. We should check it once a week. Because those things, batteries can go flat. They can read differently. The alarms can sound different at times. So don't rely on tire monitoring systems. Right? Check our tread. We need to check our tread, obviously, on all 4 tires, including the spare wheel and the pressure in the spare wheel if we have one. For those of you that drive really fancy cars, you don't have a spare wheel. So some BMs don't come with a spare wheel, Mustangs, etc. They have a nice device. It's a little compressor that puts slime in and then you put slime out, and it's all a confusing thing to fix a puncture. Yes?
What is this effect that we always hear about? It is hot, you bring your tires. It's cold, you must be this certain percent.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so I did an experiment a few years ago on that very thing because I was concerned that the recommended pressure, for example, and I did on a motorbike, was 2.5 in the front. So I diligently put 2.5 in the morning on the front tire. I had monitors all over the bike, and off I went. Then 20 minutes into the ride, it's now alarming saying you had 2.7. So now I'm at overpressure. Well, I am. Now I'm thinking, so maybe what I should have done was gone 2.3 to make up the difference. So in 20 minutes time, then it would be at its operating temperature or pressure. So what I quickly found out from the manufacturers and guys that make tires is if it recommends 2.5, 2.9, whatever it is, you put that pressure in. The leeway they give is so huge that it doesn't affect the tire. So if I'm got 2.5 and it goes up in hot weather conditions to 2.9, it's still fine. The problem comes in when it goes down is the problem. So a underinflated tire gets hotter and is more dangerous than an overinflated tire. Unless you're overinflating your tire on a normal passenger vehicle to 7 bar, it's a problem. But we're not doing that, are we? I mean, some petrol stations don't even go up to 7 bar. So as long as we're in the recommended range is perfect, but don't go too far negative, right? On the racetrack, especially in our Mustangs and that, we increase the pressure on the racetrack. Because why? I'm running, it means it's cooler. And if the guy slides around the corner, the bead doesn't come off the rim. It's underinflated. As he goes into a sideways movement, the bead will separate from the rim, expelling the air instantly. The rim will dig into the tar, and that's why it rolls off the racetrack. Okay. Typically, we're not pushing, well, we shouldn't be pushing those limits on the road out there, but rather slightly over than under. Okay. So a lot of people say to me, oh, you're going down to Durban. Harry Smith, check it, deflate the tire. I've never done it, and to be honest, the last time I was in Durban, I ran 2 tire monitoring systems. I was 0.7 bar of a tire. Now try and work out, if you really want to do the math, what 0.7 bar is. It's like, that's it. That's the pressure difference. So why? Okay. All right. Try and balance your tires and rims, obviously, before a long trip. Get the alignment done as well. That'll save your tires. Right. Try and, if you need to do tire rotation, remember in our modern vehicle, yes.
Sometimes I used to hear the test and person admitting that it's good to use the nitrogen gas. So I just want to confirm with you. If you share the nitrogen gas instead of ordinary nitrogen.
Look, nitrogen is beneficial. One of 2 things. It runs cooler and it's more stable than normal air. It's 100%. Our problem in this country is I run nitrogen. I now travel down to Durban, I get a puncture. So I put on my spare wheel. Maybe it's running nitrogen. Then I get somewhere where I fix the puncture and they say I don't have nitrogen. Now I'm running 1 tire with no nitrogen. Or I have to find it. You see what I'm saying? The availability of nitrogen is non-existent in this country. Some tire places, I've been there where a guy pulls in. He's got his little green caps on his valves. Nitrogen. He pulls into the nitrogen station there. And he says to the guy, top up with nitrogen. And as the guy puts the nozzle on, I hear the compressor going. He's putting in air because he's run out of nitrogen. Nitrogen is a cylinder. It's not a compressor. Right? And the guy leaves there going, I've been topped up with nitrogen. And I'm thinking, no, you haven't. He's just put air in your tire. So you may as well deflate all your tires and put air. Okay. It goes as far as even on the racetrack, on our bikes and race cars, we just use normal air because of the availability of nitrogen. And we find the benefits they're there, but they're not major that I have to put nitrogen all the time. Okay. All right, so again, this is a nice one because we hook up our trailer over Easter and it hasn't moved for 2 years in COVID, and then we just tow it. We don't check the tires, we don't check the expiry date on the tires, we don't check the axles, we don't grease the bearings, and then you'll see, and you know what, if you want to make money over Easter, get yourself a bakkie, the tire changing machine on it, and a thing that can change bearings on trailers, and just drive up and down Polokwane. Charge 800 Rand, easy. You'll come back probably $1 million then. Because the guy's wheel bearing seized, now you can do nothing. At least you can say, I'll take it off, I'll quickly fix it, put a new bearing, off you go. You'll make a small fortune. I think that's what I'm going to do over Easter. Okay, and then make sure your vehicle's serviced. Again, have it checked. You know, sometimes you don't even have to take it in to get checked. You can just check it yourself, checking oil, etc. And if it's got a full service history, well, then it shouldn't be a problem, right? Remember, it's the most dangerous thing you can ever be in. Look after it, take care of it, because it'll look after you as well. Okay, so make sure your vehicle's roadworthy for our Easter holidays. Right, load your vehicle properly, and obviously any trailers. Okay, we obviously make sure that you've got the emergency numbers stored in your cell phone, because you are doing a trip away from your regular routes. Plan your trip, make sure you take regular breaks. If you're traveling with pets, make sure they're securely fastened. This I love when we head towards Polokwane and stuff, then we take all the goats with and the cattle, and I'm not sure why, and they do come back. It's like maybe they need a trip as well, I'm not sure. But they're standing there and they're not securely fastened. They're in a non-compliant trailer, not a cattle trailer, they're in a normal trailer, luggage contrailer, right? Okay, so again, let friends know you're traveling, what time you expect it to arrive, check in when you stop, just keep people informed along the route. Okay. All right, we obviously do have an app that you can download. That's a nice app. It's obviously evolving every day and every month. So in the future, we are looking at putting an emergency button on there so you can maybe push it and you get to emergency services, etc. So it's a nice one-stop app, but currently, obviously, we are evolving into that. All right, folks, any questions from the live audience or from my group? Any questions from my virtual group? Nothing. My live audience? Anything? Everyone happy? Fantastic. Right, so folks, and this obviously with the live audience and the virtual audience, we're going to take a tea break now. So obviously I will just, I'm going to mute the mic and turn the camera off so I can set it up for our CPR demonstration after tea. So the guys that are on virtual, please do not exit the meeting, stay on. And when we get back, then I will unmute and my video will go on, which will obviously signal that we're going to start with the next session. So thank you very much. Okay, folks, welcome back. My virtual guests, welcome back. So, yeah, what we're basically going to do is, talk about first aid as a whole, and then obviously our two, life-saving things that we should all know is CPR, how to obviously help with choking. A lot of the times we do first aid courses, and the unfortunate thing about it is, or the fortunate thing is, you don't get to practice it all the time, which is a good thing. But again, you don't use it, you lose it. So it's continuously having to sort of either watch it on YouTube, it's got fantastic videos on CPR, read about it, just keep your mind refreshed all the time. The bad thing with CPR is the first time you do it on a human is the hardest time that you'll ever, it's the worst thing you'll ever experience, right? As a medic, that I can still vividly remember the first time I did it, because although we use our tools like our dummies, etc., you just can't physically get the same ability, the same effect. And unfortunately, I can't do it on a live person. Other things I could do on a live person, but obviously not CPR. Right. So, first of all, CPR, remember, and these three, obviously the three words, or what makes up CPR is key to why it's called CPR, is cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Right? So cardio meaning it's now to, can I start the heart? Can I? Someone's unconscious and their heart stopped. By doing CPR, can I start their heart? Yes. Yes. Negative, I cannot. How do I start someone's heart? I need electricity. Right? So what I'm doing is cardio, meaning I'm pumping the heart. I'm using my hands as the pumping device. Right? Pulmonary, meaning they don't have a pulse. And resuscitation, meaning breath. Okay. So I can never, there's no way that when I start CPR, this guy will eventually tap me on the shoulder and say, thanks, you did your good job. So what I'm doing is I'm sustaining life. So all I'm doing is remember the pump is stopped. Right? So what I'm doing is, and I use my glove as demo, is where does my heart sit in my body? Where does it sit? Left hand side. Negative. How do we not know our bodies? Everyone has a heart there. How do we not know this? So for me, first aid is a fantastic thing because your crib notes are right here. Just got to know. So our heart sits in the middle. All right. What tends to have that misconception that it sits on my left is that it sits in the middle like this, and the main arteries sit on the left. That's where I'm picking up my pulsating heart because it's pumping through these main valves. Okay, but otherwise it sits in the middle. So what happens is this heart now is stopped. So I, as a, you have a hand on the. Yes.
Sorry, we can't see you. We can't see what you're talking about.
Aren't you?
No.
MS Teams, maybe the MS Teams.
Share the camera.
No, the camera is shared.
The camera
I think they want to see the presentation. Tell them there's no presentation. It's you.
There's no presentation. There's me. Can you see me?
No, I can't.
That's right. Yeah. So we need to
Okay, let's just check quickly.
the video being shared on the. Oh, yeah, share the video so they can see the video. Thank you.
Yeah.
Spotlight that video, so everyone's
Okay, we're just going to check it. We're going to share video and then just let me know once you can see me.
Share screen.
And now you can share this.
Now,
Can you see me now?
I can see the screen, but not you. Oh, there you are, very small.
okay, but then okay, spotlight it, maybe a spotlight the remote, the main person. I've spotlight it from my side, so he needs to maximize it on his side. Yes.
Please the spotlight.
Fine, continue. I'll live with it.
No, I think it's important that we see everything.
Yeah, what is not they need to see also then. Because I've spotlighted the main guy here.
Is that any better?
How is it now?
Yeah, it's fine. It should be fine. It's good.
Still small. The picture is still.
I don't know if it's just me, but I can see you, but it's a small window on the big screen.
Not just, is it?
Tell him to put on the screen. He must spotlight it himself.
Yes, that's what I said earlier. A spotlight the knowledge commons guy from your side, because I've done it from my side.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Right,
okay.
I was saying, reason why now, obviously, our hard stop. We now come in as a first aider. We need to perform CPR. Yes.
Sorry, there seems to be another link where some people are sitting in the alternate.
The different.
So if we could just maybe make an announcement.
Which one is that? Because there's 23 people here. And then the only link that we have is the live YouTube stream where there are about 11 people.
On Teams.
It's on Teams.
Let them drop off and send us this.
I've spotlighted you, sir, but still the video is still smaller than the group of people.
Okay, thanks.
No, the YouTube we don't show it into the screen. But Teams, you need to double click the video itself and then you spotlight the video. The user needs to do that.
My guests are going there.
Maybe we can live with it because time.
Yeah, I think this one tomorrow. Because we will stream it again to the colleague.
Okay. Right. So basically, as a CPR or a candidate for CPR, that means that the patient is obviously the heart is stopped now. Right. So what happens is the heart stops pumping. So I obviously have to intervene as a first aider, and I'm going to now manually pump the heart. So what I'm doing is, and you'll see with our demo, I'm actually now manually doing what the heart's design is, right, or function is. So why am I doing that? I'm doing that to basically sustain life. So I'm pumping the heart to get the saturated, oxygenated blood through the brain. So what I'm doing is I'm keeping the patient's brain alive, right, by oxygenating his brain. Like I said before, I'm not there to restart the heart. That needs electricity. So you'll see when we research a patient, they will come and take over from CPR. They'll connect the pedals and they'll administer a shock to the patient. Right? The only time that obviously this will happen is if I'm using an automatic defibrillator machine that you find in most gyms and shopping centers. That will do what I'm saying now with regard to an electrical pulse. Right? The normal CPR is in every way is designed just to circulate the oxygen to keep the brain alive. So the brain dies within about 2 minutes, unfortunately. Cells start dying, and potentially that obviously when death occurs. So it's very seldom that I would now, and sometimes it happens, when let's say, for example, Costa over there just falls on the floor now, and I go and assess him, and I go, right, he needs to, I'm performing CPR. He's got a very good chance of eventually getting care in hospital, overcoming it, because I've reacted within that 2 minute period. But can you imagine now, you get called from the office, your colleagues are lying there, and someone, the first aider gets them in half an hour. You still start CPR to afford the opportunity of that person maybe coming through, but the success rate is very, very seldom that the patient going to survive. Right? Because why? Time is lapsed. Okay. We still need to do it. As any first aiders or qualified medics, our job is to preserve life and afford every opportunity to that patient. I can't go, 20 minutes, fine, not going to ever recover. I have to perform it until advanced life support takes over, or until they transport and they get the declaration of it. So in the realm of first aiders, we've got first aid level 1, 2, 3. Then we've got, and I'm just working on the old protocols. They are changing in the next couple of months. We've got a BA, which is basic ambulance, BAA, basic ambulance assistant, and they go through the food chain. And you've got your basic life support, your intermediate life support, and your advanced life support, then your doctor, then your trauma doctor. And we work in the realm of categories. So if I'm at the scene as a first aid level 3 and a higher qualified person arrives, I will hand over the scene to that person. Because I've ended or at my extension of scope of work, I cannot perform duties over and above my scope of work that I'm qualified for. Okay. That's technically how it should work. Okay. But we do see weird things happen in the industry. So let's say, for example, I do see a patient or I get called to a patient that's now collapsed. Patient's unconscious, so I see no movement. I've got to ascertain whether this patient is a candidate for CPR or they might just be CPR. And you don't want to start CPR on a patient that is having a nap. So what I do is, before I even get gloves out, mouthpiece out, nothing like that happens, I first look at the area to ascertain whether there's any other hazards that can harm myself or the patient further. Right? If there is, I would obviously remove those hazards or ask someone else to remove the hazards. If I've got other people around me, perfect, I use it, right? So what I do is I would now tap and try and awaken the patient. So I'm basically, and my patient's name is Fricky. Okay, I've named him. Likes that name. So I go, Fricky, wake up, wake up. What I'm doing is I'm using an audio response in case he can hear me. I'm tapping in case he obviously feels me, right? Because I don't know the patient might be dead. Okay, so I'm using 2 responses to try and see if he actually is definitely unconscious. Now I can ascertain, right, he's unconscious. So now what I need to do is I need to assess other vitals. Okay. If it's a family member or someone you know, chances are, would you need to put gloves on? Your choice, right? But usually, obviously, when we get to scene, we don't know the patient. So at this point, I would then obviously put my barriers on. Right? So barriers meaning gloves. The gloves are obviously, bearing in mind, we always use blue gloves. There's a reason for this, because these are nitrile gloves, right? They don't contain no powder like the previous versions. And I know the previous gloves, before we got these nice ones, the response cars was like, it was full of powder. The steering wheel was white, the lever white. But we have to put them on while we ride. But these ones are nice, they're nitrile, there's no powder, and they obviously are not latex, right? Some patients are allergic to latex. Okay, so these gloves obviously keep them safe, it keeps me safe. So once I've done that, I now need to check if this patient does require CPR. So I'm doing my ABCs, right? The first thing is airway. I'm looking to see if the patient's airway is obstructed. Okay. Now, a lot of the time, if I do see maybe there is an obstruction, I can do a finger swipe and remove the obstruction. And then a lot of people say to me, "Why does he bite you?" He's unconscious. So I'm quite happy to put my finger in there. But lots of people say put a spoon in there and a piece of metal, and just your finger's quite acceptable. Yeah? So I do airway, non-obstructed. If it is, unobstructed. Okay? Then my B, is the patient breathing? Now, how would I tell if he's breathing? What do I do?
Yeah.
Remember that, unlike Ricky, he's close, the patient. So how would I tell if he's breathing? Beautiful pulse. Okay, but that I'm ascertaining breath now. So my B is breath. Okay, 100%. So what I do is I would basically looking down the abdomen, right? I'm doing that. What I'm doing is I'm feeling for breath, and I'm looking at what?
His chest is
Stomach. Stomach. Right. Do this experiment. Lie on the floor and breathe. Does your chest move? Stomach. I'm lying on my lungs now. Okay, so I'm looking for the stomach movement. If none of these are present, I can ascertain that obviously he's not breathing. Then my next thing is, and we said a pulse. Now it's my circulation. Is the circuit circulating? So then I'll check for other pulse over here. Where else can I check for pulse? Over here. Where else? Foot. Well, ankle. Where else? Yeah. Groin. Knee. Right. Anywhere where there's a pulsating artery. Okay. So I do that. No pulse. And again, I'm checking pulse with these 2 fingers. Not with my thumb. Why? Because my thumb has a pulse. Pulse reading I need to check with these two things. So now I ascertain, right, this is a prime candidate for CPR. Right? I've done the ABCs and non-responsive. I then would obviously take my mouthpiece. Again, if it's a family member, would you bother with the mouthpiece? Probably not. Yeah. Well, maybe. Not sure. Yeah. But again, it's a barrier. But you get different versions of mouthpiece. This one I prefer, and I always use this one. The other one doesn't have this. It's just completely flat, and it's got a non-return gauze on it. I don't like that because it moves and it doesn't stay in the same position. Okay. Very simple thing to use. Most of them have a nice picture of a face on it, so you can't confuse that completely. It's a non-return valve. In this instance over here, this mouthpiece is going to the patient's mouth, keeping it open, keeping it nice and stable, and then I can obviously breathe in this. Non-return, so that obviously if he does, again, more likely not, but any bacteria or vomit or something can't come through the non-return valve. Right? So I will obviously position it into their mouth. Right? Just excuse tricky because the mouth's not very open. Use the different mouthpiece for demos. But I like to use this one. Now people say we shave, but now you're covering the patient's mouth and nose, you're suffocating it. I think that's the least of his worries with this one. Okay. So I've got my mouthpiece in. Now, I need to now start performing CPR. Okay. The first thing you need to do is understand you need to be in the correct position. You might be here for up to an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Once you start, you don't stop. Okay. If you feel that you are going to get sort of to a point where it's tired and help's not arriving, again, remember you've sent someone for help. Emergency services on their way. That's the protocol. You get them on your way, right, before you start CPR. Then you can, and there's another first aider, you can say to the other first aider, can you assist me with CPR? He will then kneel on that side, and what you can do is, I'll show you after our cycles, when I'm breathing, he can get in position and start taking over. That's how we take over. We don't go, okay, I'm done, who's next? Anyone? And then we're like, oh, you come and start. Okay. We need that interactive, that chop over quickly. So how do I do it? What I can do is, I need to obviously, I don't need to, but it's preferably better to expose the chest in a male, right? In a female, obviously again guys, bear in mind, there's a crowd around, everyone's with a damn cell phone, people taking pictures, video, you don't expose obviously the woman's breasts, right? What you can do though is, before you position your hands, just quickly feel under their breast, if they got an underwire bra on. If they do, you're going to have to either pull it up or try and remove it at some point. Because the minute I start going into my compressions, it's just causing more injury to the patient.
Why is that prostate? I'm being serious. As long as a lot of ladies wear prostate nowadays to tighten that tunnel. And that's what I'm saying.
If it is something like that, then and you can't.
And that's what I was looking at when you said you're looking at the breathing. And at first I thought myself, the ladies like to squeeze themselves so much they don't.
They stop breathing.
So nowadays, how do you do that? Because you might apply compression and you might be doing damage.
No, so on that. So it's a good point. If there is something obstructing like that and I can't remove it, then I need to understand when I do my compressions, I need to go even deeper. And I need to do more intensive compressions, right? Yeah. Don't worry about breaking things. You will break the ribs straight away. Right? So the minute I do my first compression, those ribs are broken. So I'm not breaking ribs here, I'm breaking the ribs off the sternum. So I'm breaking the ribs here. Lots of people say, but no, if you break a rib, it's going to puncture a lung. There's no chance of these puncturing a lung. Look at the patient where they're lying. I'm breaking sternum ribs. By breaking it is an advantage because I can get more access to that arch. I need to keep that pump going. So what I do is I picture, and obviously on our dummy we don't have to picture, but I would picture, and hopefully, and again, everyone's nipples are in the same place. We hope. Sometimes CPR might be on my knees. I'm not sure. So what I do is I would take obviously my index finger, my thumb, and I'll basically put it like that. And what I do is with my strong hand, I would then put my strong hand over there. That's kind of the area I'm aiming for. I'm not aiming for down here because if you take your fingers and do that, push there, there's no bone. So I'm aiming for just above there, right? And you can feel that's where I'm going to stop breaking ribs. Okay. So what I do is I interlock my fingers, I get into the position, and what I'm doing now is, and again, it's not, that's doing nothing. All right, it's lock up the arms, because again, you don't want to cause any sort of movement. Lock up the arms, and you're using your body weight to give you the compression. Because then I can get right through those ribs onto the arm. Okay. Now, how many compressions do I do? How many pushes do I do?
Yeah.
How many? 50, right? So I do 30 compressions to 2 breath. 30 compressions, 2 breath. 30 compressions, 2 breath. Checking my ABCs, going through airway, breathing, circulation. Nothing, I continue. 32, 32. And again, you'll see we always write stuff. Just before you start compressions, jot down the time that you start. And then I just always mark because I can't remember compressions, to be honest. But after my cycle, I'll just take my thing and just grab it. Or I would pull on my glove and I leave a little box. So at least when another medic arrives or someone ALS around, I can say, look, I started CPR on the patient at 11:05 and I've done 9 cycles. He knows. Cool. That's what I've done. So how do I breathe? After my 30, I go 28, 29. And again, look at my rhythm now. I don't go. So how do I know what's a good rhythm? Because that's important to get the good rhythm going. How do I know of a good rhythm? What's an easy way? Okay, easy way is, you know that song by Queen, Staying Alive? You know the beat? Just don't sing it out loud. Because you know your patience is totally on it. So I'm doing the sequence and I'm going, staying alive, staying alive, staying alive. That's the beat of my rhythm. Okay. Once I've done my 30, I would then do a chin lift, again opening the airway, and then I would apply 2 breath into the patient. Now this mouthpiece has got a little tip on it. I'm not going like this because I need breath. Right? So when I do that, I chin lift, squeeze the nose over my barrier, and I put my entire mouth around it. And I go. That's breathing, not. Right. Through COVID, our protocols did change where we weren't allowed to breathe because it was new COVID. We had no clue what it was. So it was fine. As long as I did my compressions, it's fine. I'm still keeping the circulation. Unless it was a drowned patient. Remember, the drowned patient, all the oxygenated blood has been depleted because of the water. They suffocate. Where in a normal patient like this, they still have, to a degree, some sort of oxygenated blood in their system. So I don't have to really oxygenate. Right? On average, we need about probably 6% of the atmosphere to breathe, of the 19 that we have. When you breathe in like that, I'm producing like probably 17, 18%. It's like a huge amount of oxygen. Right? Way more than I'd actually breathe normally. So I am oxygenating blood quite extensively. So that's at 30 to 2, 30 to 2. And then again, like I said, miraculously, he won't tap you on the shoulder, generally not. Once another medic arrives, you would finish your compressions. As you finish your compressions, you say, I'm going to do my 2 breath. If you've got someone helping you, when you're doing your 2 breath, he's already come put his hands in position. So it's instantaneously, that cycle continuously. Okay, you'll find the ALS will then take over. One of the medics will continue compressions while the ALS will hook up the pads to the patient, either to shock or to check for signs of life. And then you remove the mouthpiece that we use as a normal first aider medic, and he will bag the patient. Right? So we'll put obviously a tube down his mouth with a big bag, and that's just easier to now administer those 2 breaths. Right? Because I can get right into the blood cavity. Okay. Once he does that, you'll monitor his machine, and the machine's picking up electricity in the body. It's picking up all the vital organs. If it's flatline, then you'll call time of death. Okay. You only need one printout of the flat line to determine the call of death. But only an advanced life support can declare death, right? Unless it's obvious signs of death. So if you as a first aider see a head there, the arm there, a torso there, and an 18-wheel truck has been over him 4 times, I think we can establish he's a people. Okay. We don't need an ALS to establish it. All right, so, yes.
If a patient is bleeding on a major artery,
Yeah.
you continue with compression
So remember, it's
without
life,
controlling. I mean, that's the
again, remember his heart stop. So what you need to realize is if he's got an arterial bleed, right, it's the blood that you see was the last pump of his heart. Right, now his heart's done. You must now ascertain, when you're doing that, you will see an arterial bleed going up.
Yeah.
So what you do is you can tourniquet that, so that when you push, you're not exiting oxygenated blood. Okay. It's useless putting a band because it's still seeping. So we tourniquet. Now again, tourniquets, again, they banned them. Now I believe we can use them again as a medic. We had to go on about I think it was about a 4-week course on how to use tourniquet. It's a very, very unique thing to use. So if I have an arterial wound, let's say my arm and it's now pumping, I would tourniquet obviously over here, again on my pulsating joints, right? So I tourniquet there. But I need to monitor this piece. If it starts looking a bit discolored, release the tourniquet, let the blood flow low. Otherwise, I'm killing the arm. Okay. But that does take quite a fair amount of time to do that. Again, the tourniquet, people were putting tourniquets on and not tightening them. The only tourniquet that we use is the one that goes across with the Velcro strap. You strap it on and you turn that thing. And when I say turn, you turn it. Once you turn it with all your might, you clip it in, you strap it over. It will have a white strap on it with the time. Again, jot down the time. So when another medic arrives, he knows the time of tourniquet has passed between there, and he might decide, okay, the arm's useless, or you can still save it. Right? So we monitor the tourniquet. Yeah. So, but again, it's life over limb. So I'd rather tourniquet a guy, he's awake and breathing, he doesn't have an arm. It's a good day for him. Okay, he's alive. Right. So, again, that's obviously in your adult patients. In your children, things are a little bit different with CPR, meaning that, again, I ascertain the fact of ABC, so airway, breathing, circulation. Before I now start CPR in an infant, I would first administer what we call 2 rescue breaths. First, because look at the sound. The oxygenated blood not as oxygenated as in an adult, right? So what I do is I give 2 rescue breaths, then I go into my compressions. Now on this baby, if I did this, I would squash them completely. All I need to do with a child of this size is I again find that sweet spot, 2 fingers on top, and you can hear the clicking. Not a lot of effort there. Right? The good news is, with a child like this, I don't have to break through the ribcage because it's not developed yet. It's still sinew. So things are nice and squishy in there, so I can get to the heart like I was doing. Okay. All right, so the same thing applies, but again, it's a 2 rescue breath. I would still do 30 to 2, 30 to 2, and then check obviously my A, B, C, etc. Okay. Again, like I said, it's very seldom that CPR is we're not even very limited success rate of CPR, but we need to ascertain that we're keeping that brain alive. And from there, they can go on to advanced life support. So have you ever heard the terminology of someone can be dead or dead? You're either dead or dead. And it's a real thing. This patient currently that we've been demoing on now, he is dead, not dead. I'm still circulating blood through his brain. Still a brain activity happening there. If, however, his brain has died, there's no blood circulation, he's now dead. You've heard of someone in the hospital on life support, they are physically dead, but there's still activity here. They're on life support. Whereas they take them off life support, now they are dead. So you hear sometimes when you do calls, the patients after the controls rooms will be going, it's a P4, now we know it's completely dead. Otherwise, we'll still stay in the category of P3. All right, so a good thing to carry with you is obviously little pouches like this. This can sells in every first aid shop sells them. In India, you've got a couple of gloves and a mouthpiece. It's easy to put on a keychain, hang it somewhere, because these are the tools you need for CPR. Okay. Again, like I said, a family member and you don't have these tools, then I'm sure you'll help them without getting a barrier and stuff like that. But just carry that with you. It's easy enough. Yeah, if you do get to a scene, well, you've got a first aid kit with you, a bag. Generally, if it's packed properly, we'll pack our jump bags in certain colors, and they've got nice transparent pads, pouches now, so I can see things. But generally, our blue and green pouches are for airway and CPR. Your red is for wound, and then obviously the other stuff goes into the yellow pouch. So we classify our pouches with color. So on scene, I've seen that color pouch, and I know my airway stuff is in that pouch. For red is usually blood, wounds, and burn. Okay. All right, so that's CPR. Obviously, choking, things are a little bit different there. What's the first thing I can do for someone when I see that choking? So I'm in a restaurant and you're like, and I rush up to you. Must I straight away turn you around and I'm going to No. I go there, I grab your face like this and I say cough. Try and get that reaction coughing. Because when I'm panicking, I'm sucking the object in. It might just be meanings that someone needs to just grab me and say cough, and I go, oh, and there it goes up. If that doesn't work, then I'll obviously turn them around and put them in the position where I'll be doing this. And then what I'm doing is I'm trying to get under where I shouldn't be doing CPR. Now is where I want to get my hand under there, and I'm using that upward thrust. That's why they say, how can a small person do the Heimlich? Well, you don't need to be big. You just need, as a tailor, upward thrust. On a child, it's a little bit different, and there's a lot more protocols. I can't do the Heimlich maneuver on a child. So what I would do is I would obviously then place the child in that position, and I would thrust on the back. Okay. Again, checking there's no obstruction. If I can get it out with my finger, great. If not, I would then thrust on the back of it. Okay. So that's how we obviously sort out choking. Again, the key thing is before you perform anything, get help on the way. Okay. So I see now someone cut themselves, there's just blood everywhere. Straight away, you go phone medics. If not, I phone them, stay on the line, I'm helping the patient, and they'll generally talk you through it. Okay. So a good app to download is the Netcare app, because I found that app's really interactive. One, you can swipe to the right for medical emergencies. Two, there's tabs at the bottom where it's got CPR, choking, wounds. So if you forget, you can just click it and it'll actually just run you through the instructions of CPR. Like I said, once you start CPR, you do not stop until someone else of higher qualification comes and takes up. Yeah. And then, wounds. Again, you'll see in some of our mini kits, especially with the motorbikes, I can't carry my whole jump bag. So I have a leg bag and I have certain things in my bike. But literally, I'm attending bike crashes. It's going to be bandages, tourniquet. That's about it. So you see a wound, bandage. That's it. Don't worry about cleaning and bandaging. There's something in it, leave it in there. We do get at Viscam now, they make little things like, that looks like a donut, it's a bandage. I can put that over the impaled object and then bandage around it. For my entire practical, I think they still do it to the guys. They made us make donuts. And after my thousands and 19 million donut, you can actually buy them. So we used to sit there in ambulance and make the donuts out of a bandage the whole night. And then they used to take and go, good job. Start again. And it's just initiation to the audience. But I know how to make a donut. Okay, so again, get help and obviously off to the hospital. My last thing, what would you do? Because it does happen. If you get to a scene where someone's lying on the floor and their arm is lying over there. What have you? Lost arm, off, God. Lying there, full conscious, bleeding. Tourniquet first. Tourniquet belt. You tension the belt as hard as you can. Right. And you monitor vital signs. Okay. Now, once the medic gets there and takes over, what do I do with that arm? Or if I want to, if the medic's not inside and I have to transport this patient, how do I take his arm with me?
Hold his hand.
What is it?
So I even look like so that's a myth. You put that arm on ice, they will never save you. Because it gets thrust on. I'm killing everything in the arm. So what I do is I'll take one of my bandages, use my triangular bandage, right? So sling bandage, which is a nice big bandage, saturate it with water or saline solution, and I'll take that on and I'll package it in there, and I'll roll it up and make it like a little present. I'll put it into a container or something where they can transport with the patient. I say this because a few years ago we were looking for a foot that in that ambulance and the patient in that ambulance. We need his foot because we attached to him. We couldn't find him nor the foot. So eventually they came together. So don't do weird things like ice and all sorts. As it is, package it, put it in there. And the chance of them not stitching it is very unlikely, but again, afford them that opportunity. Because again, especially with the clean cut off here, get those fibers, come on. They can, make no mistake, they can micro-stitch it. It could probably still work. But before it actually starts healing, the infection is going to set in there so hugely they're going to have to amputate it. So as long as it's going to time. If it's still half on, they would start attacking. If it's clean off, forget about it. Again, give me a foot. Okay, any questions? Okay, we hope you never have to use this ever.
No, there are some things that I came closer.
Yes.
I think for children, there's one thing that in the experience I had. My child was choking and I panicked. I literally, as a parent, panicked because you're thinking a child can't breathe. And they spend it, and the first thing you do, the first response is you do it too far. And that's the wrong thing. And because you're in a panic mode. And that's why I came closer to see that you need to do a little bit more gently. Yeah. But then it's something that every parent, I think, you just get training before you go into the right child with them as well. To be honest, half of the things I go through them, they're scared. Because as a parent, you panic. And then you go into frenzy mode, particularly if you don't know how to respond. And you're like, oh, okay, it must be friends like that. Then wait.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, again, it's like driving. We get our license and never go get educated about driving after that. We think the government said I can drive, I'm good.
No, that's wrong.
It's wrong. We need to educate ourselves. The same as this. We have kids, we like, but it's fun. I'll just figure it out as I go. You know, I went to a scene where a patient did the bar, the KP4 on site. It was a bra, you know how guys are, we eat off the bra. Eating a piece of meat and choking on it. No one at that bra knew how to say it was choking. Fell down and they literally watched him die. And all that they could have done was, even if they stuck a hose pipe down his throat, would have dislodged that meat. You know, I got there, I could see exactly where the meat was lodged. Even if they put fingers in and push it down, the friend would still be alive. They all panicked in the thing. So it's just knowing these things, right? Obviously responding to them. Yes.
Sorry, with the choking scenario in an adult, does hitting the back help?
Not really, because we obviously got so much going on there, and we built and structured. To hit it, just getting hit with our spine. So good, yeah. So rather get that trust up. I have seen, and it's a real thing, but I'm just thinking, would I be able to do it? They say if I'm at home by myself and I start choking, I can help myself. You kneel down and you put your hand like this and you throw yourself on, and I'm thinking, I'm totally but look at it right, the hand placement. When I could do that, I would be still choking. But apparently you can do it. But yeah, remember, obviously a child up to a certain age has one bone structure. What I mean by that is everything about the sinew, etc. But as they evolve, everything starts going into the ribs as we see it now and stuff like that. So that's generally they bounce. Yes, question?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to ask, say for example, you've done CPR and the person starts breathing, and there's no other medical assistance, there's no other yet arrived, what do you do?
Okay, so if and like I said, it's a long shot that they start breathing, but let's say they do. It does happen, Once they start breathing, you then will put them into the recovery position. In case they obviously vomit, they obviously don't choke on their own vomit, and you monitor their vitals. So if they go into a state of unconsciousness and stop breathing again, you would then start CPR again. And you continuously do that, monitoring until medics arrive.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, it does happen, right? But again, it's very unlikely. You need that injected medical shop. That's why gyms, shopping centers have an AED machine, because why? At a gym, you're exercising hard. So no, there's more chance of heart attack. If you do fall down, rather just let's hit you with an AED machine and get you up and running again.
For somebody with a pacemaker, would that make a difference?
Absolutely.
Something that we need to be aware of. Because the question I'm asking is, I think we do have a different things, right?
Yeah, we've got one.
And if a staff member's got a pacemaker on, you can't use that. And how do we get this information? Because the staff needs to tell us this.
Look, so what happens is, and again, it's difficult. So, you know, you can, on, let's say, some kind of secure place, have the staff's medical information where certain managers have access to it. So if you've got a staff member down, if you have access, you go onto a database, type your name, surname, and just a few medical things about them, like pacemaker, if they're diabetic, blood group, etc. comes up. And you give that access to, obviously, senior people, but at least then people can access that database. Right? What you can do is encourage the people, your colleagues and employees, if they do suffer from a condition like that, just to wear a bracelet or some sort, medical bracelet or hashtag bracelet or something, if you see it and you go, okay, that doesn't necessarily say pacemaker, but if I phone this ER24 and quote that number, they have the medical history form. That's what we encourage people to do. Especially nowadays, we're shopping cars all the time. So I'm in, let's say, someone else's car, I have a major crash, and I don't have my wallet with me, or it gets stolen, my phone's gone. Now I'm unconscious, the medical arrives, and there's no clue who I am or what medical aid I'm on. So what do we do as medics? We don't just leave you. We will transport you, stabilize and transport you, and if we arrive as a private medical service provider, we'll transport you free of charge to a government facility. Okay, that's what Netcare does, ER24, Emergent Med, Medical Response, and HALO. We transport free of charge, government facility, they'll sort you out. But now what happens if you never wake up? You go up to high care and no one can ask you questions, we don't know. So we're next to King's not informed, etc. What the hospitals generally are doing now is they take a picture and they send it out on social media and say, can you please come identify this person? Because you know who it is. You've got nothing on it. So why put yourself in that trauma? Just have something simple, like a bracelet on or a piece of paper in a cubbyhole with some history on it where I can just get some identification. Discovery released, I think they still do, if you're on Discovery, they'll release a QR code that you put above your license list. Works fantastic. I just go scan it, like you scan your induction there. I scan it, I get all your medical information, great. And what we found in COVID, because people obviously are without jobs or losing jobs, the first thing to go was medical aid. Cut medical aid. So when I get there and I'm unconscious, I look, I find the wallet, I take out the medical aid and I check, oh, it's still valid. But it might not have been paid for the last 3 months. So we were told not to keep using that as verification. So I actually have to phone Discovery and say, I have this patient here, can you validate this card before I transfer? Not assuming it's valid on the basis of their number. But we validate and then we can transfer.
For in terms of our rules, we send them to our phone. Whenever information possible. We send them to the public or private.
If it's a medical emergency, then they would, depending on whether they have, they can make the choice if they're unconscious.
If they have conscience.
IoT, definitely.
IoT is also a private hospital.
Yeah.
But for somebody possible on site, like this, the incident we had recently, where would we send? Because we wouldn't know if there's medical data.
That's yeah.
I think it's something that for something we need to
Yeah.
If you start your database for employees and then it's easily passes out, you know you pay. Other names are into the database and we'll get this stuff done.
Well, HR is supposed to have a record of current, but I don't know how it's supposed to.
I guess no.
Just a question on the AED, please. Just to go back, what would be your recommendation? I mean, we've got one at our medical center, and we've had staff members come and say that they want, AEDs, units in the buildings, etc. We can train them in things, but what would be your opinion on that?
You would need, how many do you have on the campus? One.
The campus now currently is one.
Yeah.
And I think at the ICC, we don't have one. So it's just the
So
one.
for the amount of people, I mean, you see, one, it's not dependent because I can start CPR and then get the AED. It doesn't mean that I'm going to not do CPR while that's on.
Correct, yeah.
That's a better intervention, or a intervention after CPR. So you again need to calculate, right, where's the AED machine or medical center, and take the furthest point away from it, and say, right, guys, we're going to test you. How quick can you respond to this with the AED? So then you can determine what your response time is, and then determine if you need another AED closer, which will respond quick.
No, but then our AED will respond quicker than the
Yeah, on site,
Yeah.
Derek,
And this, yes.
just wanted to add, you're speaking about if certain staff members have conditions. Yes, HR might have the information, but it's also important if either each team or each floor, like however you are situated, is have one person who's health and safety, one person who's like fire and safety or whatever it is. And that person and a backup person should be able to have that information. So when someone's ill or whatever it is, then they're the person to go and attend to the scene. There's always two people, either per department or per floor, in case of emergency watching.
Yeah, you remember the legislation says you need one first aider per 15 employees?
Yes.
Yeah.
How many?
15.
Five.
Yeah, 15.
One five.
One first aider per 15.
Sure. One line.
We have, we have two first aiders and 55.
Yeah.
I'll check it and send it to you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Because we've been working on a ratio.
1 in 15, because imagine now 1 in 50. Two cars driving each other with 4 people. As a first aider, I have to cope with 4 people. 4.
No, we've got multiple first aid.
Yeah.
The problem is it's just the size.
The ratio. We were working
Not allowed.
on a ratio of the same as the she reps.
Yeah.
That's how we've been working. But
Guys,
a large.
can I be recognized? I want to make something.
Yes.
The discussions, remember that's why we have a visual only, right? This particular device is here, is meant for you. So when you're talking, those guys are lost now. They can't hear you. So they want to be part of this discussion.
No, it's fine.
So
yeah, I'll check for you. And
that little device can be utilized as well for the
But yeah, 1 in 50 is definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that's basically what we can do. Again, when you're driving your vehicles, have something in there so I can identify you, so I can get you the correct medical help, whether it be private hospital. And also do yourself a favor, if you've got full medical aid, great, you pay it every month, just give them a call and say to them, look, the current plan I'm on now, and paint a scenario. So if I'm driving my car and I hit into a bridge and I'm unconscious and the medic arrives and he sees my medical aid card and he goes, right, do you know what criteria for airlift? Do you cover airlift? Paint the picture for them. Because chances are they say, ooh, actually we don't, but for an extra 85 Rand a month, we'll outsource it to Halo or Medivac or something. Okay, if it's not linked to Netcare, you will not be catered for any of it. Okay, because Netcare is the only provider currently that has the only aircraft, fixed wing and obviously the choppers. The rest will be outsourced to MediResponse, Medivac, Halo, or Rocket. So just check it, because an air ambulance now will probably cost you about 90 to 100,000 Rand to air. So we're not cutthroat, but we do need authorization. So before we start rotation, we will need to ascertain who's paying for that. It's either medical aid or a family member steps up and puts 90,000 into my account before I start rotation. Okay, we can't sit with bills for that aircraft. Okay, so transport by helicopter, obviously definitely life-threatening and times are not on our side. Amputation, some amputations, heart attack, spinal, and any sort of major cardio thing, then we'll transport by helicopter. So you might see that the helicopter responds here to a collision and he flies literally to Mill Park 1 kilometer that way. You might find that something's happening to the patient, that if transport by road and goes over a bump, it's going to rip spleen or something and it's going to bleed out internally. So we need that movement. That's generally why we would transport helicopter so close. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Right. So what we'll do is, are we taking the virtual people outside with it?
Yes, where's Tabisha?
Okay, so guys online, just bear with us. We're going to obviously put you on mute and switch my camera off until we get some technical stuff happening. We're going to take you outside with me so you can view the outside demos. Okay, perfect.